You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
وتكلمين هناك لشوارستايجر
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Yep.
If you were going to create a fake World Cup with fake teams in the world of soccer, what fake team would you put in the fake World Cup?
Team North America?
Team North America. Would it be an under-23 team?
Yeah, but with Mexico, though. The actual
Okay.
North America, I would include Mexico.
Okay. Would Connor McDavid be the captain?
No, it would be soccer, Dwayne. So Connor McDavid would not be in that team.
But they sometimes warm up with the soccer ball outside. Is it not? Look, we're talking about the faux cup of hockey. Is that what we've gone with anyway? Yeah, real quickly. Yeah, Kevin, I'm going to admit that I've watched it. I'm going to hate watching the tournament a little bit. Is it not an admittance that the sport doesn't have a world profile, that you can't even find 8 teams to put in it? Does that not bother hockey people, Kevin?
I don't know. I haven't followed the tournament, Dwayne, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking in general if they couldn't follow them. Anyway, enough of the hockey talk, but the fake World Cup. The Team Europe is actually going to make the knockout round, which is hilarious. All right, let's talk about something that's not fake, Kevin, to start this show, and that would be the Canadian Premier League, because it isn't fake, and I think it's pretty clear now that it isn't fake. There was some news that came out today that MLSE, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Limited, have decided that they, quote unquote, would like to be involved in the Canadian Premier League. They are having a meeting with the CSA this week, I believe it is, or maybe next week, sometime soon anyway, to discuss what exactly their role can be in this new league. Now, on the surface, this sounds like good news. Would you not say? Like, that's good news that the MLS teams are sort of saying, this is good. Let's be involved. But
MLSE, we don't know about the MLS teams itself, but the MLSE for now.
Sure, an MLS team will say anyway.
Yes.
That at least one of them is open
Because
to
I don't
this.
think the same situation is going to be replicable in Montreal with things that are brewing right now in the world of businesses with the two cities, Laval and Montreal. A lot of things happening, and it's hard to say which owners group could eventually get a potential Montreal region, quote unquote, CPL team, because it does need to have a Quebec presence. Will it get to Quebec City? Will it get to Montreal? And that's going to be the interesting aspect of it. It's all unfolding as we peek behind closed doors. It's going to be the next few months that we figured it out. But I don't see the same thing happening in Montreal. In Vancouver, it's kind of be different too, because you have a lot of different philosophies in the world of soccer in the province of British Columbia. So that's going to be interesting to see how they get that aspect of the CPL there.
Yeah. Well, I think the Whitecaps are going to fight it, but that's just my own personal opinion of how I interpret how they do business out there. But certainly, to speak to what's here in Ontario, which is what we do know right now. Look, this is there was a troubling comment within the article, though. The article is in the Toronto Sun if you want to find it, but there was a troubling article with Bill Manning, TFC's president, where he said that maybe we could put TFC 3 in the league and have an under-20 squad in there. Now, this is suggesting that TFC's perspective on what the level of the league is not necessarily anywhere close to what I believe and what I've been told the CSA is looking to put in this league. So if TFC wants to put, quote unquote, TFC 3 in, which doesn't technically exist, although the third tier of TFC would be their League One Ontario team. If they think the League One Ontario team is going to go into the CPL and be competitive at all, then I think that they're either deluded or they're trying to undermine the league before it starts. And that's what concerns me about this kind of article, Kevin.
Well, when you mean undermine the league, you mean in people's perception, putting a team that would not necessarily represent what we think of as a professional soccer team. And that would be like Ottawa Fury. They don't have age limits. They don't have they're a professional soccer team. They're the top team of their academy, quote unquote. They're the top team of their region. That's what the CPL wants. And if a team like MLSE, a team like owners group like MLSE, Toronto FC as pyramid uses their fourth tier, yeah, I don't think that's what they want. You can use the branding of a TFC because, yes, that is valuable in the market in a way. It wasn't really valuable a few years ago. That changed over the last 2 years. So now that aspect that they're drawing big crowd, the brand is actually seeing positively in the market. That could be useful in the CPL to get credibility. But it's a double-edged sword because then you have MLSE dictating how they want to prove to the league to be perceived in their market to maybe undermine a potential rival.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, is the brand, I know what you're saying exactly. And that is the argument you hear from a lot of people is that having the branding on there, having the Whitecaps branding, having the Impact branding, having TFC's branding, and putting aside the fact we don't know what's happening in Vancouver, Montreal.
To be honest, if it's their second team of the pyramid of TFC, it's fine with me. That's where I'll draw the line. Because then it becomes the USL team for me. Yeah, and that's how I see this future CPL, USL in Canada.
I know, and perhaps off the start, it might be at that level. I take issue with having a branding of TFC2 in a league because
you can call it just TFC and CPL, whatever. I'm just saying it would be what their USL team is right now.
Perhaps
the level, the last step before the MLS club.
And I understand where people come from when they say that, and I do, and I appreciate having that kind of branding in there. But if it's going to be drawing crowds. I look at their USL numbers. They get 400 or 500 people at a game. So I'm not too.
You have to hype the product differently. It has to be a part of the CPL with the package with TSN and all that. That's where TFC2 doesn't have that chance.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't think that if there's any, I disagree completely with having them in there. Is where I'm coming down from because I think that having them in there, these reserve teams. The average consumer is going to look at the league then and go, it's a B league. And they're not, this country is already going to resist the idea of an all-Canadian league. We already do across the board. There's plenty of evidence for that. You put reserve teams in there and you basically are restricting this to just the soccer crowd, just the hardcore Canadian soccer crowd was all the people that would show up, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong on that. There's no proof of it. There's no way to prove it until it happens. But that's my perspective on that.
No, I don't want to when I was saying the branding is because it helps gather attention, credibility, publicity. And you can don't even have the same name. It can be Toronto Blizzard, part of the MLSE family, whatever you want to spin it. So it doesn't have that second tier value. And that might be what needed. You call it the Attack of Montreal, the Attack of Laval to bring back some nostalgia in a way, and you have a branding that's similar, that's with the club, and you have the promotional values and marketing experience of the MLS club for the CPL. That would make everything a lot easier. This was something that we always thought was going to be the exact opposite. We thought it was going to be a league rival, quote unquote, lead to MLS. With Don Garber's comments 2 weeks ago to the show here, and what we heard since then from different person in MLS organization, there's a different perception of the future CPL, and they would rather be in it to try maybe to control it, fine, than not in it. So there's that aspect of how it's all going to be built up. Everybody's scrambling right now. They're trying to maybe accommodate everybody.
Sure. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what this meeting plays out. And the perspective, the issue that I have with the Manning's comments about it being tier 3, and we'll get back to that and forget how this might actually play out there, is let's explore the idea of them trying to undermine it right now for a second. That's a bit of a, you can say that's tinfoil hat. You can say that that's a conspiracy theorist, whatever. But by and large, Kevin, if they are going to, if the CSA is insisting on a rival team going into the market, MLSE can't stop that. They're in a different league. There's no control they have over that. We understand that from a business perspective. There's no way that they don't own soccer in the city, right? So they can't stop it. They know that. So what they can do is try and get their foot in the door, which they can be doing, and we've talked about that already. But if they still get turned away, if the CSA is still hell-bent on not allowing them in there, then the next thing they might do, they're going to start to view it as a rival, and they're going to start to do things like this to try and undermine it. I think that the idea that the League One Ontario team would go in. Well, they wouldn't. They're fourth place in League One Ontario. Like, they can't even win League One Ontario right now with their under 20 team. So how the hell would they win a professional league?
Yeah, but granted, they've dominated the first year of League One Ontario with their U23 team, though.
Yeah, their U23 team did dominate League One Ontario, but the quality of the Canadian Premier League, because it won't just be Canadian players, folks. It'll be
probably. And that's what I think we need to stress, though. There will be a league with playing opportunity for Canada with quotas at least and high percentage of it, but there will be some stars, DP, because it will be a single entity model that comes. There's probably going to be designated players or designated highly foreign players, whatever is going to be the acronym for it. So, example, it might be retirement, closer to retirement. It might be what MLS used to be 3-4 years ago, but you will got names that you know.
Yeah, well, and you'll get a lot of, I suspect that you'll see a lot of Central Americans, a lot of Caribbean players that will fill those domestic spots, and a lot of American players too that would be NASL type level. If the money I've heard is correct, if the investors I've heard is correct, that's what the league will look like. So the idea it launches at a League One level, anywhere close to it, is patently absurd if that is the case. The name, I have a name. I've been told who the name of the Toronto investor is. I have been also asked not to reveal it. For various reasons, I have agreed not to do so. But what I can do is give you a general idea of what the name I've heard. This is a billionaire. This is someone who could afford an MLS franchise. That's who I've been told is investing in the Toronto team. If that is correct, then the money that's going to be involved in this is going to be far, far higher than most people think. There are still a lot of challenges, as we've laid out before, in terms of trying to make it in the market. And you're right, having that marketing expertise of MLSE, having that ticket sales, having those connections already,
just
having
a network of people, of ticket holders, of email, that email list. You know how worth it is to start something, that famous email list, even though nobody checks their email anymore. You know what I mean? When you just have that notification, this club, blah, 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 you got an email, it builds up the awareness of a club, and that email list of hundreds of thousands of names that every MLS club has in their market is valuable.
Sure, and I agree with that. I think that where I come down on this, however, is this, because I talk to so many people, and I get the sense, I get a very strong sense that this is not interesting to them. That whether or not you believe that, whether or not you think that that's the right idea, I don't think it can happen. So in some ways, the fact that the people that I talk to are hell-bent to not let this happen suggests to me that there is going to be a rivalry aspect to this. And
but there's just one thing that I just thought of. If you're looking at the age of the 3 USL teams that the MLS club have right now in Canada, so Vancouver 2, TFC 2, and FC Montreal, the age group, like in 2-3 years when the league's gonna, in 2018 or maybe 2019, we'll see how the timetable is, but there will be at that age. So maybe it will become the transition and the step above USL that we would like, what NASL could be in Canada. That would be what the CPL could be, and those teams could maybe even make that transition down the road. Maybe that's what's going to happen, because they have players that are older. They're going to have to take a decision. Do we cut them loose and release all of them and start new, or we keep the USL team, get the team back to U18 or U20 and graduate all the players that we have, those ones in a year down the road, to the CPL team eventually?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Sort of like a 3 to 4 tier system, if you include the League One, is kind of what you're suggesting.
Yeah, that would be exactly. Yeah, not on paper, but that's what it would be. Yeah,
like pragmatically speaking, that you would have kids that would probably. I just tell you right now,
just create a step for those 3 teams, because you're gonna have like 15 players in every of those cities that a year down the road are not gonna get a job if that doesn't happen, and then they're probably gonna end up in the CPL anyways.
Yeah, well, that's probably what the natural path. Well, you're already seeing it with the USL teams. They're moving to other USL teams. We've got Canadian players right now playing in Louisville, playing in other USL teams in the States, right? Like that's already happening, that have been cut loose from the Canadian MLS Academy teams.
Well, it does help that in the USL, Canadians are domestics, but let's not belabor on that.
Well, and that begs the question, too, is a lot of things have moved in the past few days on that front. Or at least we're getting the hint. A lot of people, and in the article that I talked about, there was a suggestion that there would be, quote unquote, a solution to the Canadian problem, basically, by the end of the year. And I can't help but think that that's
Canadian.
being mowed.
Designated Canadian is, I saw that on Twitter, and it's the one I'm going with.
I think that having Canadian spots on the rosters that are paid by an office in Canada, MLS Canada, and that they pay those players and the salary and the contracts are held in Canada. And so each team has 3 Canadian roster spots that they can use that wouldn't count against the cap otherwise, or something like that might be the solution that comes down the pipe. Yeah. And then that would get around the U.S. labor laws because they'd be Canadian employees that would be being transferred to a branch in the United States of the company, right? Like if you follow that.
They would have that green or it would. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you get around any type of concerns you have about labor law that way. That's probably the solution. But I do think that the pressure from this Canadian League is what's going to happen. And I do think that Victor saying that gently reminding them in The Guardian that they have sanctioning power ultimately might be what's leading TFC to go to the table. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this meeting that happens this week. And hopefully we'll get some reports from that. And hopefully we'll get some news, some official news on the Canadian Premier League soon. I've been told that it might happen sooner than later, but I've been told dates before that have fallen through. So I'm reluctant to sort of put much on that. We'll see.
To your point, Duane, though, now it's not just you anymore. You know what I mean? You're not just the only one talking about it.
Yeah.
Not saying that it wasn't worth anything, but saying that all the other now you actually feel that it's close to disclosure in a way.
Yes, as I said off the start, something that, we went from talking about fake hockey
like
teams.
UFOs. It's literally like the UFOs. Eventually, we'll get close to disclosure.
Yes. Roswell will come. We'll know what's
UFO.
happening at Roswell eventually, those bastards.
Exactly. Yeah, take a break.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
You know what the best thing about talking about Canadian friendlies is?
No.
It teaches me how to pronounce very obscure countries.
Oh, like Mauritania.
Mauritania, exactly.
Morocco's not bad. Like
Morocco, yeah.
It's going to be the side. We can pronounce Morocco or Maroc. That's fine.
Yeah, if we didn't know what Morocco was, I think we might need to go back to our geography classes. And I do have a Bachelor of Arts in Geography, so although it's not really about maps and places, but that's a different topic. Anyway, it's also urban geography, my degree. Canada announced 2 friendlies for the October dates, the 2 countries we just said there. So quick thoughts on that. Is that a good thing, Kevin?
Well, yes, because we as a country, I'll stop using the Canadian men's national team, the Canadian Soccer Association want to take advantage. One thing under Floro is they took advantage of most of the international break, and you want to continue that trend. You want to continue at least a group of players. Who knows if they're going to be the players chosen in the future by the coach? It's not going to be interim because the former Deputy Finlay takes over, Michael Finlay, as interim coach of Canadian soccer. But in the future, who knows? But to get those core players together still, to keep it going, to keep a certain perception and optics of progress, of not necessarily scrapping everything. Yeah, you need to play. They need to be together. They need to play. You need to move on.
Yeah, and I think there's a symbolism too to having these games. I mean, I don't think on some level anyone would have been too upset had they not played in October, considering that World Cup qualifying just ended in September. But I think I understand the symbolism of immediately saying, you know what, we're going to play a game. And getting out there and putting it out there and saying, like, we're not going feral here. We're not going to put this program on ice. And they have in the past.
The shelf. Yeah, we're not going to be put on the shelf. Let's play. Let's already look to Qatar. Let's use those friendlies for something.
Yeah, and even the where they put these games is in an area very close to Qatar. That Morocco, I can't help it. Go ahead.
It's not a coincidence, Duane, that they're playing in a hot place in the month of November.
Yeah, it's and they had October these games, but the November they are going to play November as well, and that was one thing that was stressed in the press conference when they announced Benito Floro had mutually agreed to part ways, which is the great euphemism of canned nowadays. But at any rate,
Duane, how many times in MLS this season in 2016 we've seen it 3 times, including Floro, where they agreed that the guy should be fired.
Yeah, I mutually agree that you're going to fire me.
I agree that you just gave me a box with all my effects in it, and then security is escorting me out of the building.
I mutually have come to the consideration that I should leave now that the big guy with the security badge is behind me. Yes, exactly. No, where was I? I do
Michael
think,
Finley.
to get back on track here, there is a lot of symbolism to these games. You're absolutely right, and I can't help but think that they purposely put it there just as a thing there. But it begs the question. First off, let's talk about Michael Finley real quickly. And Gavin Day was the first to report that. We should give him credit. He's an interim coach, and there's a lot of people out there that are already sort of being a little hysterical about it, saying that this is evidence that the CSA is not going to hire the right kind of guy. And I tell those people to sit down, maybe grab yourself a beverage of your choice, relax a little bit, just put some calming music on, and give it some thought.
Go to Apple Music because now it's available. Get the smooth jazz playlist. Just listen to a guy just twirling on his keyboard and just take a chill, man.
Yeah. This is not going to be the full-time appointment for the Canadian men's national team. You can't make a hire in a month, so they've just basically put someone that's familiar with all the ins and outs of the program right now that can just step in and do a job over the last. And this is a guy that did it when Flora was with the Olympic qualifying. He stepped in and had. Was fine with it.
Well, you want to put somebody that's not going to be necessarily offended with the interim tag. That's somebody that doesn't want necessarily that job. Somebody not as high profile as you would like. That's able to just keep the ship afloat, keep it going in a certain direction while they're looking for their long-term replacement.
Yeah, and in the past it was Colin Miller that they brought in, but Colin Miller's a guy that wants the job. So to have him come in as an interim again
would be an insult to him. He would feel that way.
Yeah, and he might not want it. And same with like any other guy. And most of those guys are coaching at some level right now in the playoff push, right? So we want to avoid that kind of stuff there and just put a guy in that's happy to be in that job. It's the same situation with Victor and him moving away from the CSA presidency because he has CONCACAF now. Is they felt they didn't want to put someone in there that might be applying for that job. So they just basically had Victor hold on for as long as he could so that they can then transition exactly into a new vote, right? Like you want to start with the new guy. And it wouldn't shock me if Finley's the interim guy maybe through to the spring. He'd probably play a set of friendlies in October and November, and then there'll be a break in January, and then there's maybe even that February window.
You remember last week when we talked about this? Like 8-month period. That would fit the bill. Like late spring, that would get the... because you want to get the right person. And then, yes, I'm going to say Del Bosque once again because he's available. And who knows? You might, one of my coaches told me when I was a kid, Duane, if you strive for perfection, you'll reach excellence. So why not trying to get the best coach we can out there? And who knows? Maybe you'll say yes.
Yeah, you never know. I don't think the salary that the CSA can offer is up to the standards of some top team countries in the world for sure. But there are other advantages to living over here that some people might look to. There might be some coaches out there that have lots of money that are interested in the challenge of it. It is one of those
it's a challenge, all right. There's no better challenge in the world of football. Dude, come here. We're going to give you a team that hasn't been to the World Cups in 86, haven't been to the X in 98, and see what you can do. Hey, it'll look good. You'll look good on your resume if you can achieve something. So come on here. Come to Canada. Make this team great again.
Yeah, you're going to certainly get a lot of prep or a lot of props if you manage to get Canada to a World Cup. Certainly, you'll be a hero amongst our listenership, and that might get you a cup of coffee in Saskatoon. But nonetheless, hi Saskatchewan guys, hope you're doing well. Nonetheless, it would be a certain challenge, and that might appeal to people, is what I was getting at too. So anyway, these friendlies. What kind of lineup do you think that we'll have in them? I anticipate that it'll be mostly Euro-based, and I think that makes sense because to drag the MLS guys out in the middle of October and fly them to Africa and back doesn't seem like that's going to necessarily be. Yeah,
Euro-based and players that been in the program over the last few breaks. So there are those players, if they accept the call, all those type of players will probably be what the roster consists of. You mentioned the MLS teams, maybe teams that are not in contention that do have Canadian players, maybe then those calls will be accepted. That will be the case. Some of the players might not even play in MLS teams anymore because their season will be over. So the over players. So we'll see what that happens there.
Yeah, I could see, although it is a very long flight for the Whitecaps players, right? So that's the one caveat to that. But I could see the Whitecaps releasing some of there's guys that they don't play a lot anyway. Maybe a Fraser Ayers. I know Fraser Ayers plays a decent amount, but certainly some guy like that hasn't really had a great look at the Canadian setup. Maybe he'll get a shot because the Whitecaps, I do think, it's looking more and more, and we'll talk about that at the last block today, but it's looking more and more like that's over there. So really at that point, you want to just give your players opportunities to build for next year. Speaking of the Whitecaps, here's a thought exercise, and you may know where I'm going with this. We talked with the coach a minute ago. If Carl Robinson is canned, and I'd say it's about 50-50 right now, is he a guy that would have any interest in the Canadian job? And should the Canadian job have any interest in Carl Robinson as their coach?
Oh, I don't know about that one. I would say no. I would not agree with that. I would like to continue the experiment they made with Floro, but push it a level higher. Like, why not just try, all those big countries that come out of nowhere because they hire a big coach and they have a lot of results. Why can't it be us? Like, why not us? Like, we're as good as anybody. We have enough money as anybody to get somebody as good. Come on, let's just do that. Let's just get somebody. If he's Canadian, he's Canadian. But I mean, let's get the best person possible. Let's try to get the best coach this country could ever get and go down from there. If not, but let's try to get him at least.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with you. To play devil's advocate, this would be the argument for Robinson. He's a guy that has spent much of the last decade in Canada, playing for TFC. Then he was away for a couple of years, then back to Vancouver as a coach. So he has an understanding of the Canadian player pool, an understanding of the Canadian system, probably a pretty good understanding of the politics in Canada. He has coached in CONCACAF, in the CONCACAF Champions League, so there is some experience there. He has played in CONCACAF as well, so that is something that would add something to that resume. And he's had some level of success. The argument against him, as I think he just laid out, is his experience level is pretty minimal. Just the one head coach jobbing at Major League Soccer level. He's never coached internationally. He is a player's coach, I think. That might be beneficial, but I think that there's also an argument that you kind of need to go from players coach to hard ass to players coach to hard ass. And I think Floro was closer to the players coach level. It's hard to really tag that. A lot of those guys like them a little bit.
You can't really have a hard ass type of coach or a raw coach as a national team as well on a long-term basis. What Canada needs, they just don't need somebody that's going to come and just take over 4 years anymore. We're trying to look for somebody better. And if we have to take another bridge coach, we'll take it. But we're trying to get the Del Bosque, somebody that can come and revolutionize. I can't say that word, I know, but do that at the highest level of soccer in this country. Why not? We're just always looking for solution and always trying to make do and put some duct tape on it. Sometimes you need to just build anew. I'm not saying scrap everything. No, I'm saying get somebody that knows at least what they're doing at that level. Somebody with experience at the Jurgen Klinsmann type of coach. Maybe he will be available very soon. Who knows?
Oh, I don't want Klinsmann.
No, but that profile.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
like if Sir Alex Ferguson, for crying out loud, get him out of retirement. That's what I want at this level. Why not?
Doesn't Alex Ferguson have a cottage in Canada or something? So there's some connection there.
There's probably a connection, yeah. So why not? I just want to hear that they're trying to do that at least, because sometimes if you want to get to that level, you have to take steps to get to that level. And it's all well and good trying to build the stairs by yourself, but hey, if you know somebody that can build the stairs faster, hire him.
Okay. Well, for Alex Ferguson is not taking the Canadian men's national team coach, but just
but it's an example. Yes.
For a minute here. Could you imagine the first press conference when I had my first question though? How long would it take them before they cut me off on a 10-minute diatribe about stoppage time and Michael Owen scoring and all, like how long would it take them to kick me out?
That's what it would be like. Duane, security, get this man out of here.
Show up in my city gear.
Next question.
Exactly. No, just no, Duane. No. That's how it would kind of go there. Yeah, I agree.
Take this man's badge. Take this man's credentials.
We talked about this before, so I'm not going to belabor it. I do hold on more and more. I know, like the name idea is a good one, but maybe you overpay for a name. I'd be equally happy if they.
So what? Why not overpay for one? Sometimes you get the full value for what you overpay for.
Sure, but then again, I look at Herdman, and I'm not advocating for Herdman to take the men's job because it's a different skill set.
Yeah, yes.
But you look at that hire, and he wasn't fancied at the time, but he was a young coach that had success. I'm also okay with them going and looking at places that there's traditional success and finding a young up-and-comer that's looking for something to prove himself as well. I think that that's an equally good approach, and that will cost you a lot of money, but not maybe as much money as a huge name. And if that's the way that they can sort of balance that two worlds, then that's kind of where I come at it in that, Kevin. All right.
Fine, yeah. So does John Herdman have a brother?
Or a prototype at any rate. Let's take the break.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS postgame show, open lines after dark, 5 rings daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
We're going to do a Bits and Bites segment here. We're actually looking to maybe get a Bits and Bites bumper done. Any sound engineers out there might want to play with that one.
No, I got it. It's going to take me a few days, but I got it eventually.
You got us?
Next week.
Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. Bits and Bites for our American listeners. I'm not sure if it's a snack down there. That's where I got the name from. There's a beautiful garlic-based snack up here that's it's trail mix, basically, right? You got
I like the cheddar-based one.
Yeah, you get cheddar, you get barbecue. I like the garlic, the original one. Yeah, so it's like it's trail mix.
The original. I always like the original things.
Shreddies, you got I like the old stuff. Shreddies, and you got pretzels, and you got it's good stuff. Anyway, that's what Bits and Bites are. Every handful is different. That was the old advertisement back from when I was a kid. You probably weren't born then, Kevin. Anyway, all right.
I wasn't.
You were born then. I don't know if you're eating Bits and Bites in 1984. Were you?
Well, I was just like 2 months old.
Okay, so there you go. Yaya Toure. Let's move on here.
Yeah, interesting. But the more you think about it, we shouldn't be surprised with the birth. Remember the birthday situation with Toure?
Yeah, I remember.
But so don't get me. Is this the story? So Yaya Toure agent spoke about the club and say, "Oh, it's a shame my player's not playing." Blah blah blah. And then Pep Guardiola says, "Yaya, you're not going to play until your agent or yourself apologizes."
Yeah, it's precisely what it is. He also retired from international football today too. So from
Ivory Coast.
The Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire. How do you say that? I always say it wrong. Anyway,
Côte d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire. There you go. That was probably butchered too. So we're all pronouncing things wrong today. Anyway, so we'll put that aside because he's of the age where people start retiring from international football. So it's not that big of a story, really. But the story at City is interesting to me on several levels because obviously Yaya is a player that is immensely talented still, and there was flashes last year where Toure would step up and show who he was. And I think that if I look back and objectively, right now I'm looking at a bobblehead of Yaya Toure on this desk, okay, as I do this thing. So I obviously have some affinity for the player, and I think that he basically was the reason why Manchester City won 2 titles in the last 4 years. They maybe should have won them a little bit more than they did, but nonetheless they won them, and Yaya Toure was a huge part of them. He certainly was the main reason why they won the FA Cup in 2011 to break a 35-year title spree or cup drought. So he has a massive part of Manchester City's history. This is a player like Joe Hart was that is part of the DNA of the new city, but yet Pep has gone in and immediately cast him aside. Not completely like we thought, but is laying down the law. And that's just sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I was going to make comparisons to example of Chelsea of 2004, where the first crop of superstars of the new regime, of the new team, their first glory moment, their first trophies, those players that got them, the new legends of the club when they part ways, it always feels a little bit of weird whenever you see the Lampard left and those in Chelsea. It was almost a little bit the same type of situation. Players that had a lot of history for that club recently that need to move on because you want that club to go on and finally get that Champions League or whatever Pep Guardiola's goals are, and he feels he needs some different type of players and doesn't necessarily fit the same type of soccer he wants to play. So you have that, and it's never easy to move on from those newly minted legends.
Precisely. but the thing I'll say about Pep is that he's been fair about them. When he took over, we just all assumed that Kolarov, Zavaleta, Torre, Hart, all of these guys that were sort of not maybe playing at the top of their form last year would just be out the door. But with Kolarov and to a lesser extent Zavaleta, we've seen them. Zabaleta, my God, I'm putting a TFC player on Manchester City. How did I do that? Zabaleta. We've seen that if they can perform in training, if they can adapt attack styles, he still has a place for them in that club, and they have both got considerable playing time, especially Kolarov, who's been a revelation this year for Manchester City in terms of what he's done. He's even played some center half, for God's sakes, and no one ever saw that happening with him. But at any rate, he's showing flexibility. But with Torre and his sort of constant drama, which is, you mentioned the birthday party thing, which if you don't know, a quick reminder, he got in a pout because they didn't give him a birthday cake. My God, what is he for? At any rate.
Well, I can understand where it comes from, because you have a lot of teams. Sometimes you get a super birthday cake and it goes viral on social media. Oh, look at his birthday cake and it's birthday. And he felt like it was like forgotten, and he didn't feel he was respected about that. Not saying that I would feel the same. Maybe it's pettiness. Maybe it is diva-like reactions, but I can understand where it comes from when you see your teammate get that cake.
Yeah, his birthday's in May as well, I believe. So there's other stuff going on, but yeah.
Yes, and you're just like in the training camp. It's not like it's during the full season. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, it's look. Here's the thing about Torre and a lot of those players is that when City got the money, that they had to basically, the way that they closed the gap was that they overspent on players that had one thing wrong with them. A lot of things right with them, but one thing wrong with them, the attitude or some flaw in their
Nasries,
game. Yeah, so you got a lot of guys in that were immensely talented, but that they were head cases in a lot of cases. Balotelli would be a prime example of that, right? And it did allow City to close the gap with the top clubs in the Premier League. It didn't necessarily allow them to become an elite European team, and I think that what's Pep's is coming in right now to do that. He's to close that final gap, which is the hardest one to close. And so you got to have to move apart. You got to start looking for the perfect players, not just the nearly perfect players, which was what they did before. And I think Yaya Toure kind of, especially with his age factored in, falls into that circle. He certainly will have City fans are kind of sick of the drama by now, so they're ready to move on from him. But by and large, I think in 10 years, we'll look back at Yaya Toure and recognize him for what he was, an immensely talented player that was a bit of a bit of a guy that was coming in for the money, but nonetheless, he did the job.
The way he used to get the ball, move forward, Maradona-like in the midfield, taking no F from anybody, standing up and getting to score or getting great assists. It would always be remembered, like the Yaya Toure away with Sin City. It became like a meme. He had an impact on this team no matter what happens in the future.
Yeah, and Yaya Toure was the City of the last 4 years. He was the engine. He was the team, right? So by and large, and it's now turning into something different, and that's probably a good thing.
It's now turning into Kevin De Bruyne team, and yes, that's a very beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, well, the team's doing quite well this year, as we know. All right,
65 touches for De Bruyne in the weekend in their 4-0 victory, and quite an impressive performance by Kevin De Bruyne. I have to say, I was floored.
Yeah, well, especially he didn't. I imagine Chelsea kicks themselves a few times when they watched.
No, we're like, Wolfsburg, what the heck did you do? You have to send back to us.
How did that happen exactly?
Why did we sell it to Marino? Why did you send it to Wolfsburg? Why would you just continue as a loan? What did you do that's transfer? Oh, wow.
Speaking of City and Old City, let's talk about an Old City player that's always entertaining. Joey Barton is doing Joey Barton things right now, Kevin. He got in a dust-up, to use the terminology that they like to do. He got in a fight, basically, in training because he was arguing with the other Rangers players, about how they performed in the 5-1 loss to Celtic in the derby. Then it comes out this week that Joey perhaps has been gambling on games that he's involved in. And the only people that there are players out there that are Teflon when it comes to this. Joey Barton, I don't know how he still manages to get contract after contract. He has talent, he does, but my God, Joey Barton.
Those are allegations. We have to be careful here. The allegation, nothing been proven yet, and he's still able to play, and it's not a situation where he's going to be banned. It's just allegation, but there's always something surrounding Joey Barton. Always.
Yeah. And look, for those that don't know, and some newer fans may not know, he was actually, his first club that most people would have associated him with was Manchester City back in the just before the money, basically. And of course, he has another part of Manchester City's history is that he, of course, was on QPR of the infamous day, and he was the man that got sent off at halftime. And he also got sent off another famous City comeback. So he's been involved in 2 massive City comebacks on opposite sides of the ball in the history of that club. So he does have an attachment. We're having a lot of Man City topics here in the bits and bytes. But what would you do? Would you keep? Is he worth the distraction at this point in time? I do think he was talented enough at points in his career that he was worth the distraction. But even at a club like Rangers right now, Joey's got to be careful. But then again, Joey may not care because Joey is entertaining enough, and he is a smart guy. Even if he doesn't always show it, he does have some intelligence to him.
The way
Otherwise, he wouldn't survive.
The way he used social media, it was one of the early ones to use it, Duane, to fruition for him to have a bigger profile than he ever did on the pitch.
Yeah, precisely. And that's probably, he'll end up in TV, and maybe it's time for Joey to do that, because I'm not sure if I'm Rangers right now, and this is an outsider coming into that's already causing these amount of waves, I'm not sure you just don't move on in January from him. And that might be the end for Joey, because I can't see where, if he didn't have a criminal record, I could see him coming to MLS because he'd be highly entertaining and someone might want him. And he probably wouldn't be that expensive as a DP, because he would be a DP, guys. But that would be kind of interesting. Let's move on. The other article I wanted to put out there, it's not really an article today, but there is a lot of chatter on social media, and this is we're sticking with our Manchester theme, but we're turning it red now. Wayne Rooney, is he done? If we saw the quote unquote highlight package from the Watford game where he's like losing the ball at a play and that, but is he done, Kevin? I don't know.
Did you see the meme where it's Wayne Rooney was like looking at his phone saying that moment when you have Jose Mourinho's nude photos on your phone and you know you're going to play all year no matter how bad you are? Yeah, that's that kind of, it feels like Manchester United. Mourinho, usually when he comes, he's a legend killer for his first year, gets rid of the big names and establishes new ones. Chelsea and mine and other teams as well. But for United, he has brought his own. He's brought the Pogba. He's brought Zlatan. And Rooney, he feels like he still has to include him. He doesn't want to create a riot in Manchester. But you know what? Rooney has not been up to par in the last 3 games. Nobody in that team has been in the last 3 games.
Yeah, and it's 3 games, so we got to be a little bit careful.
Well, it's not one; it's 3. So what's the saying? Once, shame on me. 2, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Well, start to be on you.
There you go. There is if you want to turn this in, look, I'll throw you all under you. I'll confuse you all, and I'll defend him here for a second. Yeah, just to absorb that.
You're talking about Mourinho in United.
Yeah. I saw some stats this morning. If you like the advanced stats side of things on the game, and not everyone does, but if you do, there's a spider graph out there that shows, if you look at it and you didn't know what player you were looking at, you would just assume that you were looking at an attacking midfielder, because his passing stats are still off the chart. He still is a very talented passer of the ball. His expected assist total is almost maxed out to where you'd expect it to be for someone. Well, the problem is he's a forward right now, and his forward stats are terrible. So that's the solution to me, is you move him back, you move him into the midfield, and you completely change the role. I don't know why Mourinho is not doing that. Now, the theory that I do have on Mourinho is that perhaps, as you said, he's a legend killer, right? But Wayne Rooney is a different kind of legend. That's a big old dragon that you have to slay. So maybe
it's a big old devil. It's the big devil.
Yeah, maybe you need to put him out on display so that you're not slaying him anymore, but the thousands of people around him, the crowd is slaying him. And that might be
that already has started.
Because he maybe recognizes that United's not a championship team this year. So he's using that's putting a lot of cynicism in Mourinho, but let's face it, he's earned that kind of reputation by now. So that perhaps that's what's happening there. All right. One more final point in our bits and bytes, Kevin, unless you have any other final thoughts on Rooney.
No, not on Rooney, but on Mourinho. It still feels weird to me seeing Mourinho with the United badge on him. I'm just like, just doesn't fit. He feels like a double agent. You feel like he's going in there to really side the club.
Well, it doesn't really fit from Manchester United's perspective either to me. He doesn't seem like a United manager. That's the United of old. I don't think that they would be interested in a Mourinho. They had, like, I fully know they're not my team. I don't care for them, never have. But I recognize the history that the club has, and I recognize that part of that was the they would call it the authenticity or the ethics that they had. He doesn't match it necessarily. It's them sort of completely becoming a modern football team. And look, I support Manchester City, so obviously I am okay with modern football. So it's not that I'm criticizing for that, but it's just hard to comprehend. They don't fit exactly right, as you said, Kevin. All right, one real quick one to end. The League Cup does start today. Is the third trophy in England? Is it something worth following still? It's a weird one because they play the big teams will play as much of kids as they can get away with in the early rounds. And
I was watching what was it? I think it was Football Today, because there's a show called Football Today on Sports Network. It's Premier League made. I was watching it, and they're talking about Leicester and how Leicester in the League Cup, they will be playing their U23 guys. They will be playing a lot of their U23 guys because they're having to battle on the front of the Champions League and on the front of the Premier League, and they can barely get that done at the moment. So they won't even bother by putting the Slimanis, Vardy, or Mahrez of this world in the League Cup. No, they won't. It's going to be kids, and they don't even care if they get eliminated, quite frankly, because they have their mindset on different trophies.
Yeah, it was precisely. Leicester's not a team I think that's really set up to compete on four fronts for sure. You got to think too. Yeah, two's a stretch, to be honest, but nonetheless, for certainly not four. So they'll probably dump out of that, and that's the problem with the League Cup. And I do think that it is, and I've always said this as a City supporter. Again, I've always said that it's not even that we should necessarily celebrate it greatly, although it was fun last year when they won the League Cup on the day. It always is. It's a cup, nonetheless, when you get to a final, but it's not something to really brag about, but it is something I think that you should expect if you're a big club, if you're one of the biggest clubs with the depth that a club like Manchester City has, and other clubs, Arsenal as well. I think Chelsea certainly has enough depth to compete in this. Those big clubs at the top, they should be winning this damn thing every year because it's about depth. It's the depth trophy. I do think that maybe they should revisit it and maybe make it an under 23 competition. That might be more compelling. Certainly, they don't even have a sponsorship anymore. It is the English League Cup now. It's not the Capital One Cup. It's not the Carlsberg Cup. It's the English League Cup, which is its traditional name. So that tells you that maybe it's a competition that needs revisiting, and maybe a youth focus might be a better way to go with it. Kevin, let's take the break, come back, and wrap with our Canadian review.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
All right, we're back for some Canadian review here.
Yep. Another tough game for the Montreal Impact at home. A very entertaining draw at BMO Field, and same old for Vancouver.
Yeah, that's, I guess, with the Whitecaps, I always struggle a little bit with what to say at this point in time. I tweeted out at Final Whistle, rest in peace, 2016 Vancouver Whitecaps. And normally if I tweeted something like that out, I would get probably 5 or 6 Vancouver guys that would be coming at me for it. It was suspiciously quiet. One of the responses that I did get from another MLS fan, like from another city, was hashtag tweets from July. So
or hashtag CCL. Hashtag we're good. At least we're in the quarters of the CONCACAF Champions League. Yeah,
we mentioned it earlier today. It's a conversation we've had previously in this season. So let's revisit it quickly before we move on, because again, there's not much to say. It's the same problems all year, and I'm not trying to dismiss them, but
let's be clear here. They were in the game until the end. It's a late Jordan Morris goal with a great Nicolas Lodero play. 2 best players for Seattle this season with the absence of Clint Dempsey. He's been cleared. It's just a question of matter of time now before he comes back. But for Vancouver, it's same old, losing points in a game where you needed to win, because right now you're looking at the red line, which is getting further and further down the road.
Yeah, and they don't have a lot of games left. That's the bigger problem. It's not the amount of points they're behind. It's the amount of games in hand people have and how many teams they have to jump over. It's not impossible, but we're getting into scenarios that would require some strange results to happen. It's like RSL in 2009. When they basically were all but eliminated. They had like about a 1% chance of making the playoffs with a week to go, and then they ended up winning the MLS Cup because of all those scenarios happened. But it doesn't happen very often, and I don't think any Vancouver fan is really expecting it to do. But to go back quickly, we mentioned earlier, Carl Robinson. We sort of did it earlier in the year. We had the conversation, so let's revisit it real quickly right now. Do you think he's in trouble?
I don't know. There's only so much you can do when a team is struggling. You can't change every player. What do you do? That's always a question. If you want to jumpstart, change things, staff, you cannot necessarily fire staff without firing the head coach. What do you do? It's as a management. If you're Bob Lenarduzzi, what do? You need to change something. You need to have the perception that you're doing something with your team in the offseason. What is there to do but firing Carl Robinson? Not that he necessarily needs to be fired. We've seen stability as key to success usually in Major League Soccer. So do you give him another year? But you need to have what is there to do?
Yeah, the braver decision is to let him stay. And that may even be the right decision.
It is. That's why I'm saying, are we going to see that brave decision of him staying? Or will they start to, quote unquote, cave into popular pressure?
Yeah, like you said, off the top, you can't fire all the players, so they fire the coach, and it makes you feel like you're doing something, and it's not necessarily as we've learned here in Toronto over the years, it's not the way to go. Stability is the key to MLS success. You've seen teams that have rebounded massively in a single season simply by maintaining, the path that they were on, and we'll see what the Whitecaps do. Their history isn't as bad in terms of firing coaches as the other two Canadian teams. But which are now seem to in both cases, the other two seem to have finally figured that lesson out. I don't think Joey's in any danger of firing Biello anytime soon. I don't think he's going to snap. I think Joey's learned to take a step back. That's my take on it anyway, Kevin.
I feel, there's some people, I've seen the hashtag Biello out, but I don't think that's the solution right now. I think he's safe for this season and next season for sure.
Yeah, and certainly Vandy's not going anywhere.
Unless something happens, right? Unless something drastic happens, which is always a possibility in Major League Soccer. But no, I don't expect Biello to be fired in the next 18 months.
Yeah, so I don't know quite where to get back to Vancouver. I don't quite know where they fit in there. They have gone through, this would be their third manager is Carl Robinson. They made no bones about the fact they were going after Bob Bradley. And the last time they tried to hire, or certainly a name of that type. So I make no bones about I don't have an idea of what they'll do right now. I do tend to think that the easy solution to appease some fans and to make it seem like you're doing something may happen. I'm kind of a little more like 60-40 right now is where I am in terms of thinking he will go. I think 60% chance he will, 40% he stays. But like I said, it will be the braver decision to remain. Let's talk about.
Let's talk about this, Duane. Someone with a calculator messed up pretty badly in MLS this weekend. And let's face it, yesterday during the show, we started the show by saying that Toronto had qualified for the playoff. And during the show, there's an X that appeared next to Dallas with the one on Toronto stayed there. So like, oh, well, okay, Dallas has qualified for the playoff. And I have a feeling Toronto might not have qualified by the end of the day. And guess what? That's exactly what happened in the afternoon. MLS will stand out the statement saying, oh, there was an error. Upon further review, FC Dallas has qualified for the playoffs.
Look, I mean, first off, it doesn't matter.
Yes, it's semantics.
I did the odds very conservatively using some compound probability, using a 50% chance of the results happening in each game, which is conservative, right? That there's 26 results that have to go the wrong way if you're a TFC fan, or the right way if you're not, for TFC to miss the playoffs, 26. And some of them are like massive upsets. So the chances of 26 things all going
like
one
Chicago
way.
Beating like 3 teams in a row in the Eastern Conference. Like that's not going to happen.
And there can't be draws either. Like it's all wins or losses. But anyway, I just using it. Just if all 26 of those factors were 50% chance of happening, which they're not, as we just said, but if they were, so very conservative odds, I put the odds of it happening at .0000198. That is the odds of it happening. So there you go. Toronto FC has effectively clinched the playoffs, but they have not mathematically completely clinched the playoffs, which is like, it doesn't matter, as I said, but it does matter from the perspective of a league knowing what the hell it's doing. Could you imagine Major League Baseball making that announcement and then going, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, Blue Jays fans, you're not quite in yet"? No, it would never happen, right? So that's something that needs to get fixed moving forward. Toronto FC hasn't actually backed off it yet. They're not really talking up the playoff thing, but it was funny enough.
They can add 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, they're just basically going to let it slide. They started selling playoff tickets on Monday because MLS. Which is funny. I'll tell you that story. In the stands, when they literally 20 seconds after they scored the tying goal in the 87th minute, a thing flashed on the big screen saying that playoff tickets were on sale. Literally 20 seconds. And that season tickets renewals would go out this week. They were waiting until they had that clinched to put the renewals out, which real quickly on that, it's not interesting to anyone other TFC fans. The prices
are not too bad, right? It's I say somebody's calculation. It's like 14 cents more per game or something like that.
Yeah, it's surprising that they did. My increase was 8%. In practical terms, I went up to. I don't pay very much because I'm a year zero tickets.
17 something a game or something.
I'll tell you exactly. It's $237.50 is what a single ticket is for me in 113.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
And it was $220 last year. So
but you get 2 games more.
Yeah. Well, no, that doesn't include the CCL games. The CCL games are an additional 30 on top of that.
Okay, yeah.
So,
but anyway, that's
so it's $270 for 19 games. It's not bad.
Not bad at all. It's similar. Like supporter section around the league are around usually between the $200 and $300 mark, and usually closer to the $250. But it's the same ticket prices in Montreal. There's $275, I think, right now, something similar to that, depending on when you got your ticket. And everybody's got a little different in their prices, but no, it's still very affordable if you're looking at how much per game it is as well.
Our friend Andrew, who's been on the show before from Indy, the Indy 11, and Reds, he's an Indy 11 season ticket holder and a TFC season ticket holder. He's showed me the data that actually shows that he pays more per game for his Indy 11 tickets than his TFC tickets now. So that's telling you that in a market like Toronto, which does tend to gouge when it can, it's kind of remarkable that they're not yet. And it shows that maybe they learned. Even MLS can learn, apparently, that they can't overpress this crowd. The TFC crowd is there for a good time. And if you overprice them, you lose numbers. So that you have to get that pricing right. And I think they have. So anyway, but let's talk about the game.
Yeah, I just want to say we'll barely touch on the Montreal game today. We will have an Off the Woodworks tomorrow coming on the network with the post-game press conferences of Mauro Biello. Very interesting one. Same for Jay Eaps and a few players' comments. They'll be coming tomorrow because I had to rewatch that game to try to isolate where it goes wrong, either in the midfield, the little striker position. Where does it go wrong for Montreal and back lately? So I had to do some rewatching, and Off the Woodworks will be coming tomorrow.
All right, so that would be a full review Kevin will have of that Impact game in detail. We'll touch on it a little tiny bit after we talk about the TFC game right now. 3-3, look, it was a very exciting game. I'll say that.
Bradley Wright Phillips, record holder. That's what I asked Jonathan yesterday. What does it say about the league when it's the first time that one player has 2 20-goal seasons?
Yeah, well, and also it's Bradley Wright Phillips. Is our friend Duncan Fletcher always likes to say that it's the number one, the biggest reason MLS has a bad reputation in England is because Bradley Wright Phillips keeps scoring goals over here, right? Because he didn't have any history before that. But I think he's just adjusted to the game. It's not completely fair that, but at any rate, nonetheless. Look, after the game, I was talking to a few people after the game, and the consensus actually was pretty reserved about the fact that they came back from the 3-3 draw. Everyone recognized that it was a good amount of heart and determination and all that sort of good intangible stuff that they managed to fight back. And Drew Moore actually, after the game, said that, past TFC would have just folded up shop. They would have probably lost 4-1 or something, right? Like it wouldn't have happened. So it is a good sign that they fought back. Now, the other side of that coin, and what a lot of people after the game were focusing on, was how the hell did they get down that much? Like they allowed 3 goals at home. There was a catastrophe at the back at times in the first half, especially. Bono I think probably we've seen the last of him for the year. Whether it was his fault on those goals, I don't think so, but he certainly wasn't doing much to really stop them beyond standing there in some cases. He didn't move on 2 of the goals. I think it's Irwin's time to go back in the goal, and that's a good thing.
He's almost there, yeah.
I think that it also, the fact that the back line was as unorganized as it was is a little bit because the keeper's inexperienced as well. And that high press that New York plays, you require a lot of organization in the back. There's a lot of communication that has to happen. And that's why I'm not trying to throw the kid under the bus like some people claim, but that's why I'm so adamant that they needed to have Irwin in that game, is because you need perfect organization and you need experience to do that. And Irwin is that guy, not Bono. But at any rate, he did well enough during the time that he filled in for sure. So we'll move past that. Is it half full, half empty? That's the question you have with the Toronto game, really.
You got Josie Altidore firing on all cylinders, getting a nice free kick goal, and then a goal where he puts himself in a position to score, a kind of lucky bounce off the defender to set him off just with one touch possibility, and he gets it on target. It goes in. It's a skill goal, even though people were saying, oh, it's a lucky bounce. No, it's a skill goal. He put himself in that position. So that is the interesting aspect of the Toronto, is during Giovinco's absence and lack of form in the last 2 games, you do have Josie Altidore stepping up.
Yeah, no, and that has been the greatest thing. And as I said before, it's something that I've been saying on this show with you since the beginning, is the key to Toronto FC, what makes them from a good team to a great team. And I know there are people out there that are spitting out their coffee when I say great team and TFC in the same sentence, but I don't think that the numbers lie this year. What the difference is whether Josie's on form. And when Josie's on form, this is a team that can beat anyone on any day and could potentially win the MLS Cup. That is a real thing, and it's because of Altidore. Or it's one is not enough. You need 2, and to have 2 guys like Altidore and Giovinco firing, this team is going to be very difficult to beat. Not unbeatable, no team is, but very difficult to beat if it continues this way. And certainly Josie had a beast of a game. That free kick goal was, where the hell did that come from, Josie? I mean, I think they should have done more on the wall, but nonetheless, he hit that spot perfect. It's funny, my angle too. If anyone, I wish I was periscoping it, because I was having a conversation with people around me. I'm like, because first off, Bradley was standing there. I'm like, oh my God, you're not going to let Bradley take this. They're going to hit the food building. And then I'm going, what letter do you think they'll hit? I literally said, I have the D in the pool. And then Josie sticks up, hits it as it's in the air in the middle of my sentence when I'm talking about how the ball is going to clearly hit the D in the food building, which is, that would be the equivalent of hitting it 700 feet above the net. I go, oh, that's in. That was that. So it was perfectly hit.
Like, oh, that's perfectly hit.
Yeah, that's cool. That's definitely going in the goal.
Yeah, I saw that a couple times in Montreal this weekend too. But it was New England. That was hitting the ball.
We'll get some NASL focus in next week. Maybe we'll get Steven on. Quickly, the scores before we get Montreal's a little preview of the off the woodworks from Kevin. The Fury with a big win over Minnesota United. That was an exciting one for them, and maybe their biggest win of the year. 3-2 over that team that will no longer be there next year, and maybe a bit of that MLS linking ahead happening there. But nonetheless,
just quickly, you mentioned the NSL. There's some weird reports coming through different sources yesterday. Oh, the NASL is going to fall into the USL. There's nothing to those reports right now, and this is just speculation right now, so we're not going to touch it on more, but just so you know, that's something that was out there.
Yeah, and the Cosmos and FC Edmonton. FC Edmonton continues to play very, very well defensively. The nil draw there for the Eddies. Kevin, I'm just going to pull the standings up here to look at them real quickly. Edmonton's still in a playoff spot in the combined season, if I can get that correctly. They're second over now. They're falling a bit behind the Cosmos, who are both winning the fall, and the overall combined at 49 points to 43. Indy 11 already in there already, but it is looking more and more like the Eddies will absolutely be in the playoffs. They are now currently 9 points in the safe zone on a big run of draws right now. So they're going to need to get that figured out. But nonetheless,
they might not be necessarily contenders for the overall as we speak. They're close to the Cosmos, but not as close as you would like. But they will definitely make the playoff, and that is positive. The Eddies, a team that were close to the playoffs over the last few years with not getting the results late in the season when they needed to. Now they're putting themselves in a situation where that won't matter. They'll be in.
Yeah, and if you only 14 goals allowed in 24 games, that's a remarkable defensive record, and certainly in a playoff, in a one-off playoff, the way that the NASL season works, if they can find any goal scoring, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could win the soccer bowl. So good for the Eddies there. Kevin, let's get a bit of a preview before we say goodbye. We're running a bit over today. So let's get a preview of what you're going to talk about in Off the Woodworks. What in a nutshell was the Impact's problem?
Well, interesting. There's a certain controversy that, according to certain journalists in Montreal, Patrice Bernier is a solution. And when he's not playing, they're 22 defeat. When he's playing 11, there's those aspects. We'll touch that situation. We'll look at the stats in the midfield. We'll look at the actual stats to see if there's a correlation between the fact when he's playing and not playing, how their team is being affected. The Drogba up top situation. We have the cannot leave it all to Piatti situation. So we do have as well Evan Bush, Drogba, Mauro Biello, Jay Heaps on the mat on Off the Woodworks tomorrow.
All right, we'll look forward to that. In the meantime, 65 minutes today, so I hope you enjoyed that. We'll let Kevin, as always, say goodbye.
And until tomorrow, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.